Hi, welcome back to Making Sense Conversations, and I am Washeke, back with you and ready to keep talking. Now, we're winding down the year, and as we wind up the year, I don't know about you, obviously you start reflecting on this year. You start reflecting on what you thought you had wanted to do. You start reflecting on next year. People start making New Year resolutions, the things they didn't do. They self-condemn a little bit and then carry them on to next year and say, next year will be better. Next year I'll champion through. Next year I won't feel so overwhelmed. Next year I won't be so tired. Next year I'll use my money better. Next year this is what I want to do. Then we also have fears of next year. Economically, this was a hard year. What's going to happen to next year? And there's just a lot going on. And in the midst of all that, there's events happening. People are trying to close down the years. There are Christmas plans being made. There are New Year plans being made. So before we even start talking about New Year resolutions, and there's so many videos going around about almost beating ourselves up because we didn't achieve our New Year resolution. So I'm not going to take that tone and trying to make ourselves guilty. I mean, how has guilt helped anybody achieve their New Year resolution? So let's do away with that old way of talking about this subject. Because every year we ask, the last year New Year resolutions, did you achieve them? No. So the same thing is going to happen next year. So unless we start digging deeper, go deeper, and start asking ourselves what truly is going on behind these goals, New Year resolutions, the fatigue we're feeling, the burnout we're feeling. And my advice as we wind down the year is first, before you start up again, before you think about what you're going to start next year in 2025, before all that, stop. And in a previous podcast, I've talked about this, and I think it was my experience after handing over my business to a CEO, and I had to just stop, and the feelings of irrelevance and all that. But that's not the point I'm making here today. We need to first stop. When is the last time your mind stopped? This mind that you expect to come up with new ways of doing things next year, to engage in new information. This body that you expect to get you up every day in the morning to move forward. This soul that you want for it to cooperate with you. This spirit that you want to have. When did you just last give it a break? And stop. So stop. Stop being everything for everybody around you. Stop doing the same thing as we wind down the year. Stop. And to stop, you have to become friends with something called silence and solitude. I don't know of anyone who transformed their lives in a way that they want to. There's a lot of transformation going on, but later people burn out because that's not what they wanted to actually do. In a way that is truly meaningful with you, without some reflection, without listening to God, listening to yourself. And my experience with God is He doesn't scream. He's not going to talk in traffic. He's not going to talk, he's not going to be in your WhatsApp group. He's not even going to be in the Christmas party. Yeah. He wants you to come away with Him and stop. So that's why we're told, be still and know I am God. Be still. But we have such a problem just stopping. I was talking to a friend the other day. I had lunch with a friend, and he said, so what are you going to do? And I just started saying, first I'll just sit. And he was like, no, sit is not, that's not doing something. And then I was like, yeah, technically maybe, but actually it's the most important thing I need to do. And this is what stopping, sitting, silent, solitude does. You listen to, all those things that you brushed away, you hid under the carpet. They either brought you were somewhere and you observed yourself feel so energetic, but it was not your day-to-day job, so you cast it aside. So when you sit still, you start asking yourself, when did I feel happy? When did I feel alive? When did I feel joy? This passion people keep talking about. When did I last feel passion in my life, in my job, in my career, in my relationships? And it can be scary because then you get in touch with, actually, I feel burnt out. And it's a scary feeling to acknowledge you feel burnt out. I can talk about it because earlier this year I burnt out for 3 months and I had to stop. So actually, my advice to anybody, please stop before you are stopped. You realize, I'm feeling tired. It's not the tired that if I sleep over the weekend, it will go away. It's not the tired that if I rush over to the coast, it will go away. No, there's a fatigue you've been carrying, and you get to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Because let me tell you, if you rush and start building New Year resolutions on top of the overwhelming life you already have, you're just putting more and more and more. It's like loading a car that is already too overloaded, so that now it just keeps going down into the ground. Yeah, so you can't keep building on top. You have to ask yourself, stop. There are too many people, even people in their 20s, who, when I meet them, they tell me they are burnt out. So what is it that is burning you out? And this is a solo exercise because you have to be brutally honest with yourself. And it can be scary because the solution is not immediate. It can be scary because it is asking us to make a change in our lives that only we can do or only we can initiate. But if you don't stop, and if you don't take this time to stop, and you may be given time off if you're working, or you can take time off the business, or it's generally slow, whatever the formula is for you to stop. Stop. And even as you plan for December, please look at all the activities you've planned and ask yourself, have I given myself time to stop? Yesterday there were 2 very important events happening and I had committed to go. But when I woke up by 12, in my head, I knew I should go. In my head, there are all those feelings of FOMO. In my head, there's the guilt of why you're not showing up. But I had to be honest with myself and say, actually, not what others need from me, what I need from myself this afternoon is just to sit still and listen to myself. And this is not a one-off exercise. It's not a one afternoon. It's you keep doing it, you keep doing it, you keep doing it until it actually becomes a habit in your life. So before we rush for solutions and declarations of what we're going to do next year, stop. Stop. When are you going to stop? Stop. If you're going to say every day, I have a break every day for 3 hours, it is a stop. And your stop doesn't have to look like anybody. You can be stopping and reading a book. You can be stopping and writing in your journal. But you have tried to slow down your mind so you can think, or rather sometimes what happens when you get still is thoughts start coming to you, so that you can be truly honest with yourself about where you are in life. I think we fear more so our reactions to ourselves more than other people's reactions towards us. So when something happens, you're more scared of what your inner voice tells you. Well, this time you're going to sit with it and say, why does it keep telling me that? And this is the result of stopping. First, you get the rest that you need, because that fatigue, that burnout, and I learned this, it is not because you're physically active. Yeah, it is that tiredness of inside the soul. Your whole you as a human being, you're trying to tell yourself something. What is that? And I learned it is pointing you. One of the things I learned, it is starting to point you to some seasons in your life that are over. And this is, the irritating thing with when seasons end, there is no logic. Seasons don't wait for your bank account to catch up. So you could be feeling all this, but your bank account is empty. So you're like, but it's my season for this job, my season for this business, my season for this relationship, my season for showing up in that way. Even in business, it's sometimes the way you show up in a job, the way you show up in a business is over. And when a season is over, you can force yourself to keep going, then you wonder, why am I always feeling burnt out? It's because the energy that you once had around it, it's not coming back. The season is over. It's not coming back. It's not hormones. It's not that you're too tired. It's not that you're working hard. And you keep trying to go back to, but when I started this 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I had so much life around this. It's not the season over. Then you start projecting into other people. It must be so and so and so. If so and so goes away, some external circumstance goes away, I will be okay. Some of you this year maybe even got a salary increase in a job that the season is over for. Yet you're wondering, you had a high of 1 week, and then now you're wondering why I'm being paid more, I'm being paid well, but why don't I feel like the energy is there? And it is the season is over. And this is how God has always operated in my life. Until I accept a season is over and I make plans to align with Him in allowing the season to end, He never quite reveals the next season. That's how He has operated with me. I don't know about you. And many times we are thinking, show me what the next season is before you've actually committed to shutting the door on a season, where you say by this date, and start making plans to actually leave that season. So what are you going to stop? Yeah, so it could be big things like I'm talking about, a significant season in your life. But it could also be things that you're past doing. Maybe you're doing things for your kids that you're like, actually my season for that role I play in my kids' lives is over. They're 15, 16 years old. They don't need me to make their sandwiches. It is over. So you're wondering why you're feeling resentful about certain activities, yet you think you should do them as a good mom, as a good dad. No, the season is actually over. Yeah. So just question, even just look at your routines and just say, actually that's, and it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. Yeah. Some of you may be like, I've lived in town for this long and my season for dealing with Nairobi traffic is over. That is what my systems are telling me. So it's time to start planning elsewhere. So I can't tell you what it is. It could be seasons for friendships are over. It could be seasons for some of the things you watch on TV or observe on social media is over. The seasons for, there's a time you are aspiring to have a newer car, and now you're like, it doesn't give me joy anymore. The seasons for possessions is over. Yeah. So just stop and just say, what am I stopping? What am I stopping? Because you can't keep loading. If you want to start something new in your life, you have to stop something. How you use your time. The season for working 16 hours a day may be over. The job still demands 16 hours a day, but your season is over. Yeah? And then you deal with your identity around that season. And, I'm talking like this because I think I've been shutting doors on seasons for the last 2 years. But you deal with your identity, you deal with your attachment, you deal with you don't know who you are, you deal with a bit of grief, you deal with a bit of loss. But as long as you've allowed yourself to understand that these are the seasons, nobody can tell you this. Not everybody is going to be jumping in joy as you shut seasons. But if we don't start making the changes that are real, the changes that empower, the changes that transform us, then when are we waiting for this? When you may have tons of money in your bank account, but you still don't see the seasons are over. You still don't deal with your burnout. So maybe it's just a season is over. And it can be a season. So just ask yourself as we cross over. And I think for me, this period becomes so important because as everybody is celebrating New Year, I always cross over into another year of my life. I get a year older. So it's important that I keep looking at what has shut. Maybe the way you are reacting to certain things is just done. That perfectionist attitude you are trying to carry around is just done. You're just done. You if you're honest with yourself, you do it out of because that's what you've always done. Yeah. But you couldn't care less about certain things anymore. So your season for caring about whether certain things were done right, left is in a certain area is also just done. So Just be honest and go on this journey with yourself. Then you can ask yourself, what do I want to start? What do I want to start? And I want you to do this before you become tangible and talk about tangible results and SMART goals and all that. We've been talking about that for decades, yeah? But before you get to the tangible, and that's important, just describe what you want to start. Because I also feel some of these resolutions and goals we set, truly we are not convicted about them. You think you should own a house, but truly you're not convicted about it. You think this is where your kids should go to school. Truly you're not convicted about it. And that's why it never happens. You think this is the amount of money you should have and things like that. And please look out for my podcast along this period as we talk about how much is enough, really. Even before we go into next year, let's dissect how much is enough, yeah? But truly, there are goals that you think or you have been told you should aspire to. But listen, nobody was there at the point of creation with you when God put what you will desire in you. So nobody can actually tell you what it is that you should want. Nobody has the blueprint for you. So just say, if all these things, if I stopped, and I have to go back to this. A lot of people have been talking to this about, and I say, if something happened today with your business, if something happened today with your job, what is the first emotion you will have? And they say relief. Then you know you should stop. So those things you're scared, just ask yourself, if something actually did happen to this thing that I am so attached to, what is my first emotion? Relief. Then you know the season is over. Because the relief is there too, because it's freeing you up for something, even if you don't know what. So now on the start side, what do you actually want? Don't tell me a house. Tell me how you want to live. Tell me what you want to experience. Yeah? Tell me what is behind the ambition called a promotion. Tell me what it's that. Is it about the exciting projects you will do? Don't tell me about I want to be head of blah, blah, blah. Tell me what is behind that. Yeah, and then you now start investigating how much of these things do I want to start are about ego, pride, or what we call what other people think I should have, or what the image I want to portray in other people's minds, or how much of it is actually me. Yeah, so what do you want to experience? And don't think just things that have an economic result in your life. Are there new friendships you want to have? Not that your old friends, there's anything wrong with them, but maybe you want to bring new conversations in your life. I want to bring new conversations in my life. I had traveled a couple of weeks ago, and I met this person who was there simply to learn cooking because they enjoy cooking. And I'm like, gosh, I want that. That's what I want to start. I want to do things and learn things, not because they have a direct economic benefit to my life, but because I want to see what else is there that I enjoy. My life cannot be so small that it is all about what produces for me economically, especially immediately. Yeah. And some of these activities I think we do that we don't know, maybe add the energy that we need to be able to do some of the other things that we need to actually do. So what do you want? And I said, okay, I want to do more of that. And I've already done that. I found myself emceeing a Christmas concert, and I'd never emceed in my life before. I go up and I speak, but the emceeing of announcements or make a crowd energetic and excited, that I had never done. But I've discovered a new thing I can do. I can actually do it, and I can actually do it well. And yes, it did provide energy for the things that I want to actually do. And yeah, then there's your work life. Without putting it as a title, what do you actually want to experience at work? Or even if you're a routine person, maybe it's the same thing, but maybe you want to handle that routine in a different way. But then that's what you start doing. And to be able to start those things, you have to stop. I'm looking back at my year, and then you assess this year, because of not stopping, what did it cost me? And I'm looking back at the year, and one thing I have done this year, as I look back on how I spent a lot of my time, I have reacted to what other people needed me to talk about, needed me to show up on, and there was a season for that. There was a season for that. But now as I go into this year, I want to start doing more of what I'm doing to you, talking organically from what I feel is the message that I should share. And I want to spend more time on that. But to do this properly, I have to say no to some of the other things, events, appearances that are actually going to come my way. And that's a decision I've made. Yeah. So what do you want to start? You can also assess where you showed up and you just knew. I have showed up, especially as we got to the end of the year, in places where it was a nice place to be. But in my heart, and when I'm truly honest with myself, I can tell I was wrapping up a season of showing up like that. So even for you, let the year teach you, or the past 3 years teach you, the past 5 years teach you, no matter how long you've been feeling that a real change needs to happen in your life, and say, when I showed up at this, it was fine, it ticked the box, it paid me. But what did I feel? Don't ignore those emotions, yeah? And so I hope this, my own experience, and I hope this has helped, yeah? If you're feeling, but what do I start? I just want to say, you are never, us human beings are never just one person. It could be what your heart is calling you to do could be so different from what you've done before, but that's because we are never just one person. We never just have one gift. We don't have only one talent we were meant to use, yeah? And I do feel as a world we're in a time where people, human beings, need to explore deeply, deeply, deeply what is human in them and bring it out. So stop, and then be bold enough to identify what you actually want to start. Then when that is done, when you have come to terms with it, this is a solo exercise. It is not teamwork. It is not couples therapy. When you have come to terms with that, then you can say, okay, who needs to be brought in alignment? Who is never going to be in alignment with this story, and it's even a waste of time trying to be in alignment? What resources do I need? How do I need to arrange my time? How does this look tangible? Yeah, so you could be starting, you've decided what I really want to do is make cups, for example. Then you can now say, this looks tangible because in 6 months I'm going to have an online store or something like that. But the tangible really, really comes last. And then when you do have the tangibles, or what we call the goals, it is coming from a place of conviction. So if you are not convicted about what you're writing down in this season, don't bother. Don't bother. Let's not waste time anymore. We don't have time. We don't have that much time. Let's not waste time anymore. So come to a place where you're convicted. Then you look at the goals you had last year, maybe, or the new resolutions you said last year. You are simply not, let's call it. May I look at some of them and I say, that was what, I've been taught a certain way of doing things, of doing business, of doing life. So that was what was meant to happen. That is the order I have been taught. But truly, I wasn't convicted. And the more I've sat in silence and solitude and stopped, the more I've listened to myself, listened to what God is telling me, who God is telling me I am. And I said, yes, those things are nice to do. But that way is not my way. Even if it's important, that way is not my way. And I want to find my own way. So stop and then start. Stop and then start. Thank you very much.